now to the coronavirus pandemic as officials start planning for the new school year come the fall. Senator Lamar saying that testing for the virus will be key in order for students to return to the classroom and campuses later this year. The senator is the chairman of the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. He joins us now. Senator, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We wanted to follow up on Yes, it's wonderful to have you. We spoke to you directly following that hearing with Dr. Fauci, and we wanted to follow up on you and your thinking. We heard from you on the university level, and we'll get to that in a moment. But when it comes to school-age children's elementary, middle, high school, should those kids plan on going back to school this fall?
My opinion is yes. There are some health risks. Dr. Fauci warned against cavalierly dismissing those, but we do know that COVID has been less damaging to young people, even though they may carry it to older people. So I think most principals, most school boards are making plans now to go back to school in August, because any teacher can tell you there are other risks, the risks of social, intellectual, emotional damage to a child who might lose an entire school year, and we want to avoid that.
There's so much to dig into there, because how do you handle the reopen when it comes to testing, social distancing, wearing masks? What do you believe is the biggest thing that we're going to have to rely on to get those kids back in the classroom?
Well, the obvious things that we already know about. One, in the classroom, children should have on masks. Number two, social distancing is still important. That means changing some schedules, and the unions and the governments are going to have to relax some of the rules and give the schools more flexibility in scheduling their classes, having smaller classrooms, staggering classes so that you might start early. The schedule might begin early. Many colleges are starting early in August and going home before Thanksgiving, so they avoid the peak of the flu season. Schools don't have the same problem of kids going all the way home during Thanksgiving, all the way home during Christmas, but they might consider that schedule change as well. In addition, there will be a lot more attention to flu shots and pneumonia shots, and there should be. But it's the usual thing: social distance, wash your hands, stay apart from one another, and then regular testing. And if you find a child in a classroom who's infected, he is or she is removed from the classroom. You test all the other children in the classroom and make sure the school is safe.
That sounds like a lot for America's public schools in particular to take all of that on. And I know you have put a lot of emphasis on the ability to test, Senator. Right now, roughly 3% of our country's population has been tested. We are now conducting 350,000 tests per day, we're told. And HHS is estimating that we could perform up to 50 million tests per month by September. How critical is our ability to test, and do we have the capacity to test enough to safely get kids back in school?
Well, I believe that we do, and I believe we're going to have even more tests. Keep in mind that we're testing this month in May in our country about 10 million times. That's twice as much as any other country, and if we go up to 40 or 50 million, that's 4 to 5 times more tests by September or October. In addition, Dr. Francis Collins has created this Shark Tank over the National Institutes of Health to have a pull out all the stops effort to create tens of millions more tests that are quick, accurate, and get a rapid result. So clearly we're going to be able to test all the teachers, all the cleaning personnel, all the people who come in and out of the school, anyone who has a symptom, a whole class, if the class has one person in it who's infected. And some schools may be able to test the whole school.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. Meanwhile, there's a lot of talk about the movement out of these concentrated big cities. Obviously, New York is one of them, into the suburbs. Many parents feel like they won't be able to safely see their kids go back to school in, say, New York City. The New York Times writes about that this morning in the coronavirus escape to the suburbs. In it, the Times writes, if people do head for greener pastures, residents and brokers suggest it may be because the city can seem, at least for the time being, like a shell of its former self. Indeed, they say activities people once took for granted, like strolling in parks, grabbing drinks at bars, or picking up medication at pharmacies at any hour, have become difficult or impossible. And it is an interesting concept to think about because, Senator, we have heard from some of the private schools now, they're seeing an uptick in phone calls because some parents think that they might be better able to handle the situation in the fall or not have to shut down like the public school system. So what is your thinking on that front?
Well, I think it's a natural impulse. We've had a movement back and forth from suburbs in the country to the cities and then back again over the years. I think you're seeing that now. We're seeing that in Tennessee. There's a real interest in being places where you can be safe. And if you're not at home alone, the next best place to be is out taking a walk in the fresh air with somebody not right next to you. So there's a lot of interest in that. Now, things will be different in a year. And, by the time we get to the second semester of school in January, there'll be more treatments, more tests. There will be the first of the vaccines. And when everyone has a chance to have a vaccine, hopefully, then this will become another disease, another virus like measles or other diseases that we weathered in the past. But for the next year, there are going to be a lot of changes in our society and especially in our schools and our colleges.
Senator, before I let you go, I know you were in self-quarantine for 2 weeks because you had a staffer test positive. I think by counting the days, you should be at the tail end of that quarantine. How are you doing? Are you planning on making your way back to Washington?
The answer is yes. It's a timely question. I got a call this morning and said the test I took earlier this week was negative. And that's a pretty good example of what happens here. I was exposed. I was with someone for 25 minutes who tested positive, so I took 2 weeks. I stayed away from other people during that time. I was able to go down to my local health department earlier this week. There wasn't a long line. I got a free test, and I got a call back said it was negative. So as long as that's available in schools and colleges and across our country over the next few months, we're going to be able to go back to school, back to work, and hopefully out to eat.
A lot of us are hoping for that return for sure. Senator, glad you're doing well. Glad the test came back negative. Great to have you come on and talk us through this. Parents have so many questions. There's so much uncertainty as we head into the summer and hopefully get kids back to school in the fall. So hope to have you back again soon. Thanks so much, Senator.
Thank you for inviting me.